from Studio 1A in Snowflake Village. You're listening to Pod Bless Kentucky.
All right, we're here with the show this week, and this is Pod Bless Kentucky. I'm the host, Tom Brennan, and Dana's joining us.
Hello.
Sunny's with us.
Hey.
All right, it's the crew this wonderful first day of summer.
And it's also like Dana's going to be taking a break. She's leaving us for Chicago.
A whole freaking week.
She's
You're
going to be.
leaving us?
She gets to go on vacation, and we'll have a guest host come in and help with us. You'll have to stay tuned to see who that is.
I'm convinced they're trying out my replacement, but okay.
So we'll be Dana-less on our next episode, but today we have her, and it's kind of good. So, just kind of good. Not great, but kind of good.
Kind of good.
What an asshole.
That's about. I would say that was about right.
Once
Kinda
again,
great.
there's a lot of alcohol, and we don't know what we're talking about. So I got to put that out there. Remember,
we know what we're talking about. We just there's a lot of alcohol.
Well, we'll do the disclaimer early. These are just our opinions. That's it. Whenever we're talking about these are our opinions. It's not fact. It's not. Hopefully not fiction.
And there are some times that we do get things wrong. And if you
Absolutely.
catch us in things that we do wrong, make sure you send us an email or a post on Facebook. And we
will gladly retract it.
Yes, we will gladly retract it. So
That was the beer talking. Sorry, guys.
So today, some of the things we're going to be talking about. Unfortunately, the Democrats have gone 0-3 on this series. 0-4. I'm sorry, 0-4. For the special elections. The special elections. And as heartbreaking as they have been, there is a little bit of glow at the end of at the end of the tunnel. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the things that have been happening as far as Congress and the AHCA and the sneakiness that's been going on with the Republicans in the Senate. We'll be talking about possible connections with Flynn, General Michael Flynn, actually jumping ship on the Trump or jumping off the Trump train and collaborating with the FBI and the national security. We'll be talking about what else? What else could we be talking about today?
Sunny's pointing to me here. Allison Lundeman Grimes here in Kentucky tweeted that we should legalize pot.
Really?
I think that'd be awesome for a multitude of reasons.
Right.
But
And we'll talk about that a little bit. So.
And then, of course, we've got Bevan still attacking.
Oh, my God, the pastor thing. Get off the pastor thing, Bevan. Come on.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. So welcome to Pod Bless Kentucky, and we will start off with, let's see, the election, the special elections that happened yesterday. There was one in South Carolina, and there was one, the 6th District in Georgia.
So the one in South Carolina isn't really, it wasn't really publicized. It's not really talked about. The one in Georgia, that's a huge district, and maybe that's why I didn't really look at the district of South Carolina's to see size-wise what the impact was, what the odds of them even taking it were. But that one in the Ossoff and Handle, that was freaking nasty.
Well,
it was.
And expensive to the expensive extreme. They spent...
This was the highest. Well, I'm gonna have to Google it, but it was the highest amount of money spent ever
on a special election.
I saw
It was
23 million, but I don't know if that was each side or total.
No,
I mean,
I'm gonna say that's total because she outspent him 2.5 to 1.
Wow.
So,
I mean,
but with the majority of that, I would assume being
and considering that John Ossoff, who was politically an unknown,
Right.
did as well as he did. He lost only by 5%.
Well, and let's be very clear, too. No one actually expected him to win. I know there's a lot of
There
things.
was a huge hope that
There
he would
was
win.
hope, but there's a lot of things that I think some liberals, progressives aren't really comprehending with this loss, is that he wasn't expected to win. Nobody had him to win in any of the polls or anything like that. He was expected to lose, but he was also expected to lose by a much larger margin than he did lose by.
Right. This was a very conservative region.
Right.
That, I mean, has not gone Democrat since the 70s. Wow. I mean, so it has seen close to 4 decades of conservatism.
Well, and 5% difference. I mean, from what was it in 2017?
And
or in 2016?
In 2016, when Trump ran, Trump only won by 23% of the vote.
In that particular
district.
So the fact that a Republican only got 5% more than a Democrat running against
Now, what
her.
the astonishing thing is, for this seat, in previous elections, the average of 60, the conservative candidate had won by 62%
in the last election.
in the last 3 elections.
Wow! So the fact that we got it down to 5 is actually
a huge accomplishment.
A huge accomplishment. Sonny's laughing.
I am laughing at the outstandingly stupid, ridiculous, I can't even put it all into words, amount of money they spent. Are you ready? I'm going to quote directly from the New York Times. Today's special election in Georgia is the most expensive House race in history. Not necessarily a special race, none of that. It's a House race with candidates and outside groups spending roughly, shall we take guesses?
I thought I saw 23. Am I wrong?
Wrong.
I'd say 42.
Higher.
46.
Wow.
$55 million in the battle for the longtime Republican-held district.
That just makes me kind of ill. Can you imagine what we could have done with $55 million?
That's why I was kind of laughing and I mean, yeah, it makes me ill. $55 fucking million, people.
Well, I mean, we'll get into this another time. This is why campaign money should go into a pot and everybody should get a certain amount, and that's all you get.
I mean, I totally agree. But
I think she agrees with me, but she's just so stunned I said it. I'm not sure.
No, I'm just stunned.
That's just a ridiculous waste of money. Can you imagine the number of flyers people got in their mail that they threw away?
Oh, yeah. They were talking about citizens in this district were very upset because they couldn't watch TV. I mean, it was constant.
So one of the things that my husband and I do every day is DVR Jeopardy, and we watch Jeopardy together every single day. And a lot of times,
what a bunch of nerds!
I know. Partially, usually while we're eating dinner, but not always. And it always cracks me up at election time when it gets remotely close, because it's like, hi, old people are watching TV, so we're going to put every political ad known to man.
They want that demographic, because
during Jeopardy.
Statistics have proven that older generations go out to vote.
Right. So it's always, though, like when Wheel of Fortune comes on and then when Jeopardy comes on, for about 2 hours, I would say 6 to 8 p.m., they blast television. Because that's when older folks are watching the news. That's when, and it's really before prime time really gets going here. So I feel so bad for those people in Georgia because they probably couldn't get through anything without seeing an ad every 3 seconds.
Well, I'm sure.
So, but I do have a question, and maybe Tom, I doubt Dana can explain through me. But
that sounded great.
You never know. She might surprise me.
She may have saw it on Jeopardy.
I am just being burned right and left today.
She's usually the one that says, but shouldn't it be? So whatever.
True.
Anyways, so the total raised by each of the campaigns, nice hair, dear. John Ossoff is $23.6 million.
Okay.
And Handel was $4.5 million. But the total spent was $55 million?
Are you telling me, according to those numbers, he outraised her by 6 times?
He outraised her, yes, but she was able to spend $2.5 more, $2.5, I guess, $2.50 more for every dollar he spent.
Would that be coming from the Republican National Party?
But see, it doesn't say anything. Individual donations, they break it down then from those totals. Individual donations were $8 million for Ossoff. Handel was $2.1. Independent groups for each candidate. Ossoff got 7.6. Karen got 18.2.
Okay, wow, so there's where a lot of her money...
Yeah, that's the money right there.
Would that be PACs and things like that? Okay, that's what I mean.
That'd be a special interest PAC that would be able to collect on her behalf, but not part of her campaign.
And then it says that the PAC that supports the Republican House candidates spent more than $6 million, that makes me sick, in favor of Handel,
Yeah, so basically this came from Republicans.
which
Now-
included Stephen Cohen, a billionaire investor, and Paul Forrester, a Texas oil refinery.
Which kind of blows my mind because both
Duh, of
candidates were actually kind of saying that it is not about a national election. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about the people within their district, within the 6th district. And both of them kept trying to say this, but you had this outside influence that kept pouring money and showing up to raise money. You have to think Paul Ryan actually raised a lot of money for her. So did President Trump going down there and actually speaking on her behalf to raise money.
Can we just drop a dome around these states whenever they're in this? Nobody can go in or out.
Yeah. Now, however, John Ossoff, he actually raised money through MoveOn.org. You received emails from them, and you had Nancy Pelosi. You had Tom Perez.
Oh, yeah.
You had these folks who were just inundating your emails, trying to raise money to keep up.
It was huge on Twitter. I mean, like, people from all over the country were retweeting, donate to.
Well, and look at the
donate
difference
to.
in those numbers. He got a little over $8 million from people.
People.
She got 2.1 from people.
Right.
So 4 times as many or as much was donated by people saying, "I think you're better. I think that you represent more of who I am, in my congressional district." And so, I mean, I think that says a lot that it took much more heavy hitters to come in to support her.
And so they have it on this particular article. It's a New York Times article, and I would suggest you look it up and find it because the visuals help more than just me telling you. So in this graph that they have, it says where the individual donations came from. A lot of Ossoff's, it looks like he and Handel got about the same amount coming from Georgia.
Okay.
And then they have it split up by states won by Trump and states won by Clinton. And so, Ossoff's graph is about 2 inches long, and Handel's probably got maybe 1/4 of an inch, meaning these states didn't give a shit about her.
Well, I think that's probably, it's individual people from those states. Like, I mean,
Right,
like
and
us
it has
here
to be
that
like
supported him
Oh,
It
yeah.
had to
trying
be
to
like
flip the 6.
$200 or more is how it was reported. I'm
So
not
it had to
100%
be somebody not just giving $5 or $10. It's somebody giving a significant,
a significant
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah.
And most of them came from California and New York.
blue,
The larger
blue
percentage,
states.
very blue states.
Right. So, I mean, if you have any questions about any of the things that we talk about, and a lot of times we do say we saw a news article in the New York Times or this. What we're going to be doing shortly is if we mention it on the show, we're going to post that article on our Facebook page, and you'll be able to see what our sources come from. So, it's a tough loss. And I know a lot of people are feeling, as far as progressives, are feeling really down about these losses.
But like we keep saying, they're losing, but they're losing in historically very red areas, the 1970s, some of them going back to, and they're losing by points where, had it been a general election, maybe something more than just these two people.
The irony there is that if they've lost since that time, since the 70s, those didn't even vote for Carter, and he was from their state.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I love Carter.
but I mean, this isn't really anything. Actually, it's like we said before, he wasn't expected to win, and he probably fared far better than hoped. So it's actually some cause for a little bit of celebration.
And it's very difficult for liberals, us, Democrats even. Democrats are off saying, oh, well, we didn't do something right. And liberals are like, well, but, what we're having a hard time separating out. She was against a living wage. She's against gay marriage. She's against gay adoption. She's against basically everything that a liberal stands for. And what we have trouble comprehending is why would you vote against yourself?
Most of these people are ingrained in the idea of voting for the same party year after year after year. And they've been part of that party. And they've invested in that party. And it's just like it is here in Kentucky. People grow up either Democrat or Republican. They get that idea of, and we had Nima not Nima on Twitter here, and she was talking about being a yellow dog Democrat. And
if you don't know what that means, that's a diehard Democrat who votes Democrat regardless of who's running, because they are the better candidate in that person's mind than the Republican.
No matter what.
No matter what.
So, I mean, that happens, and they were talking about it. I was actually watching the BuzzFeed live reports of the election yesterday, and they were saying areas of Cobb County are so red and have been for so long. Cobb County, Georgia, it's down near Fulton County where Atlanta is. Atlanta and Fulton County kind of is a mix, and then you have another county that's there that is primarily most low income, very sporadic of different races makeup, and it's very liberal. But that number does not match what's in Cobb County.
He's trying to say that it's probably very gerrymandered.
Yes.
Which is an argument we have constantly, because I will say until our country straightens out the gerrymandering, and until we straighten out this stupid-ass Citizens United bullshit, it's going to go to the Republicans. The Republicans have rigged it. Not rigged it in the sense that they're changing somebody's votes or whatever. They have organized the voting system to favor them.
It's not a level playing field. And
No.
I mean, I agree that wholeheartedly. But there's also something that liberals do that liberals are not willing to be very understanding when someone believes differently than they do. We tend to get on our high horses about a lot of things. And I'm not saying we're not justified, and I'm not saying we're not right, because there's a lot of things I believe that conservatives do not. And it's very difficult for us to understand why sometimes those arguments that we are for, that they are against, resonate with some people. And we're going to have to accept the fact that we don't all believe the same thing. And they've said it time and time again, the only way to get through to people who really believe differently than you is to reach out to them on an individual level and make it a human interaction. You're not going to change somebody who believes that, for the most part, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who haven't changed their minds, but change is slow. Change isn't fast.
And it's nowhere near easy.
No, nowhere near easy. But it's going to take a lot for someone who believes that, for instance, homosexuality is fundamentally wrong because that's how they were raised believing due to their
religious
beliefs. So that goes fundamentally against everything they believe. So trying to get them to see otherwise, the only way they're going to believe otherwise is if they get to know someone that is gay, that is someone that's close to them. And, I'm a parent. You guys are parents. You understand you would never cut your child off for them coming to you and saying, hey, Mom, this is who I am. Hey, Dad, this is,
I was raised so liberal, you all, that for me, it's hard for me to understand why a child has to even come out to a parent. I can't even wrap my brain around why, somebody would have to come home one day and say, Mom, Dad, I'm gay. I can't even wrap my brain around it. Why don't they just come home and be like, hey, this is my significant other?
When you are taught something is a sin, that something is when you're talking a sin, you're talking about something that will mortally condemn you to hell,
I don't believe in hell.
I know, but I'm trying to tell you to explain. Look at this from a Christian
point of view.
Point of view. That is something that is a no-go. There is nothing in that respect. And there are more liberal denominations who believe otherwise, and that is okay. But when you're talking Southern Baptist, which is a large part of the South, that's a no. That is a no. That is a no. Their churches aren't going to support that. The Bible speaks out against it in the Old Testament and not the New Testament. Jesus never once said a damn thing about being gay. But they believe it's a sin. And if you believe it's a sin, you believe that your child is waking up every day intending to sin and that they're going to go to hell for that sin. So, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense to me either necessarily. I would never not love my child no matter what they told me. But, that's why these districts are so difficult to
flip. And it's going to be very difficult. There are other ways that we can work to get that majority, though.
I agree.
We can do voter registration, which is very important.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who are not registered to vote. Even though they go to the DMV and they get their license.
They check off a little box, or they don't.
Or they don't. And they say, would you like to get your voter registration switched? Or
I think people get scared and think that they're going to have to fill out a shit ton more paperwork as soon as they say, yeah, I'll do that.
Or that
you just want to get in and get out.
Or it puts them on a list.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just FYI, you're on a list anyway.
Going out and doing voter registration will become very, very important in the next few months.
Yeah.
And I know in a lot of groups within the progressive movement here in Central Kentucky are going to be really working hard to get people to do voter registration. So if you are interested in doing voter registration, contact one of these groups if it be Together We Will, Indivisible, or Our Revolution. They'll be more than glad to help you get set up to do voter registration.
I think Kentucky Initiative is also doing something too.
Well, there's a specific campaign called Walk the Talk. Mm-hmm. And they are, you can actually...
we talked with Shannon, didn't we?
Yes, we talked to Shannon about Walk the Talk, and that is, going door to door, meeting your neighbors, encouraging those people to sign up, find out what exactly, what are your concerns, what needs of yours are not being met, what is your,
Now, that is directed directly towards people who are registered within the Democratic Party.
Right.
Well, but you're going around your neighborhood, and is there,
You're going to Democrats within your neighborhood.
Okay.
What needs to happen is that we need to be going and getting to know our neighbors. And this is a perfect time to do it because it's summer. We could have a block party. Could have a lot of different things. Get to know your neighbors. Know why they feel so strong about the issues that they do.
Right.
Even if it's a Republican point of view or a Libertarian point of view, find out why they believe that way and see if there is a common ground. Because you know what? We may look for a candidate that meets that. And we keep saying that we need a good candidate. We need to know what we're looking for.
But I also think it extends to farther than just not only just finding the candidate, not only getting voter registration, but I did see that Georgia had a great app that I haven't seen out anywhere else yet, and it was through Uber, and it was a free ride to and from the polling station, whatever your polling station was. Uber driver would come and pick you up for free, take you to the polling station, wait for you, and bring you home.
What a fabulous idea.
Yeah, because, that's going to be...
that's huge.
Yeah, you got to get people out to vote.
You have to think that especially in this state, which I think needs to change, where we do not have early voting, if you have somebody who works at McDonald's and they do not have access to a vehicle,
they have to rely on public transportation.
Our public transportation in Lexington sucks big time. They're going to be waiting an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, to get to the polling station. Then they have to, hopefully there's a polling station or a bus stop near their polling station. And then they've got to wait even longer to get back onto that bus, hit that little interchange in the middle in the city, and then go back out to wherever it is they need to be. It's totally inefficient, especially if you're trying to work.
And our polls aren't open late enough either.
No.
They close too early, and they can argue about this at the end of the time, but I'm a big proponent for early voting because it is largely biased against people who tend to vote liberally because there's a lot more people in the lower class, market. Market's not the right word. What word am I looking for?
neighborhoods,
socioeconomic group
socioeconomic group.
that tend to vote liberal. Then they tend to work jobs who aren't necessarily consistent hours, and it's incredibly biased. And make no mistake, people, the Republicans of Kentucky don't want early voting to be
Oh, no, they
a thing
don't.
because it largely favors them not to have it.
Right.
Well, before this last flip of the House and the Senate here in Kentucky, before we had the flip of the House, Allison Lundgren Grimes was working on an early voting, and she did have Republican support. Just it got lost along the way with all the things that the Republicans wanted to pass in this last session. So
Charter school.
if you really believe that early voting is important, that we need to get our young people and our families to be able to vote, if you're on Twitter, follow Allison Lundgren Grimes, send her a message. If you want to send an email, her email is very easy to find within our government. Just look up
Call her,
Secretary
email
of
her,
the State's office,
text
and let her know how you feel. And the more people she knows that support it will help her get this initiative going again.
Well, and not just her, reach out to your representatives and send Matt Bevin a note too that says early voting needs to happen in the state of Kentucky. It's better best for all Kentuckians.
and sign it GOAT.
Well, you don't even. I mean, this might be
It's
something
on-
you want to
we'll
stay on
get
as
there.
good
We'll
side
get
for.
there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Did you read the op-ed piece that explained that?
I did because I didn't understand.
It was excellent.
Which we will definitely have to
We'll
post
get back
on
to it.
our,
We'll get back to it. We'll
on our
get back to
Facebook
it.
page.
Tom Ringles.
Yeah. So, okay. So it's really important to get out and vote, and the special election really proved that.
And they did. They actually had a pretty high turnout of voters, considering it was a special election.
Yeah, and they said for Ossoff to be able to win, they would need that turnout. They would have to have presidential
They
election
didn't quite
numbers
get
to
to
come
that.
in, and it still didn't.
Oh, well, they didn't get quite up to those presidential numbers.
But for a special election, it was quite large.
Yeah,
They did a good job for a special election. And everybody's pointing fingers and everybody's saying, oh, the Democrats screwed up here. And the right, of course, is saying, ha, 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 ha. And the liberals are like, fuck you all.
the big thing we need to do now is not attack ourselves.
Right.
I mean, right now
And it is. The Democrats are attacking their own selves. They're saying, well, we didn't do this and we didn't do that and this happened.
that we didn't
and
take a large enough leftist approach. That we need to put more candidates like Bernie Sanders and his ideas rather than the established. Because some people kind of looked at it as that John Ossoff was a Republican light. He was a very moderate candidate.
So the problem with, I think everybody...
She hates that word moderate.
No, I don't hate the word moderate because that's what we should be as a nation to represent every person that's here. We're supposed to be in the center when it balances out. We really are. Everybody has to give. And the problem is that we've gotten to the point where both sides draw lines in the sand. And I get it. You don't want to compromise. You want to stand for what you believe in. And boy, do we stand for what we believe in. And that's great. I do it too. I show up at everything because I'm angry and damn it, you're going to know it. But here is the rub that goes with that. Bernie is great. I like Bernie. And could we run more candidates like him? Absolutely. He's not going to win. He's not.
No, because he's not going to draw the people who are in the middle.
Exactly. He's going to piss those people off. And there are more people in the middle than there are to the extreme left. So all of you people out there in the extreme left, I get it. I get why you're angry, and I get why you believe the way you do, and I hold a lot of your beliefs. But as liberals, what we have to stop doing is stop using those issues to divide us and find the ones that we can agree on and say, guess what? You're right. We don't agree about A, B, and C, but we have to agree about X, Y, and Z. And we got to find somebody that we can agree on these number of things because no one is perfect. There isn't a perfect candidate. That person doesn't exist. So, because you know why the conservatives are winning? They're willing to give on that shit. They're willing to say, who cares if he said grab him by the pussy? We're going with it, and it worked. So what are we going to do? Are we going to sit here and bitch at each other for the next 4 years about who we're supposed to run?
Yes, we are.
I know. God damn it, I know. Fuck.
Now, I mean, there are
had to be honest.
There
Sorry,
are some
David.
issues that we have to be really strong on, and we get that. There are some issues that really need to be looked at. Single payer health insurance.
But that's socialism.
That's socialism, but it is something that, and not exactly socialism. I mean, we are somewhat of a socialistic country to begin with. I mean, we do.
That was an argument. That was an argument I had with some conservative asshat. They couldn't understand how socialism is okay when we're talking about educating your kid. So for you to send your kid,
or even keeping your roads up,
but for you to send your kid to school, my spouse gets paid substandard for what he's doing because it's a socialist system. And that's okay with you. And in fact, you tend to think that it's not good enough, and you pull your kid out and you do that damn Christian homeschooling where you teach them Genesis through Joshua, but not their damn times tables. And
we'll post
that's
that.
Okay.
We'll post that one as well on the Facebook page. Boy, the Facebook page is going to have a lot of stuff going this week.
But for them to think about being socialized medicine, they flip out and be like, well, then we're not going to have good doctors. And they're not going to get paid enough. Oh my God, do you know how much doctors make now?
I do.
Yeah. Not the research doctors, darling.
No. It depends on what kind of doctor you are now. You're not going to want to get in this argument with me because I know how much debt they incur to go to medical school.
Very true.
They do.
It's a lot.
They do. But you know what? Teachers have to have a master's, and they have to have continuing education credits for the entire time that they are teaching. So the debt that they incur, they actually will, in the end, go to school probably for a total of 8 to 10 years.
Right, but they don't have to have a master's degree. They have
Yes,
to have
they do.
They do.
That's only to teach certain classes and to be in administration.
No.
State, it is a requirement in order to keep your teaching certificate.
Now, that
in
was
the state
part
of Kentucky. In the
no,
state
that's
Most
nationwide.
nationwide.
Nationwide. Within a 10-year period after receiving your bachelor's in education, you do have to proceed on and get a master's.
Well, I learned
and
something.
then in some states, you have to have that continuing education where you have to have 6 credit hours for every 3 years.
I have at least one friend. She teaches up in Michigan, and she has the equivalent of 3 master's degrees on top of her original master's and on top of her bachelor's. She has to have accumulated that many credits over the years.
Right. It's usually 6 hours a year. I do remember continuing education 6 hours a year. But
yeah. But she's special ed too, so that's why she's. But my point is,
your point is that that's very much a socialized state. Education
is totally socialized, and there is no reason, none whatsoever. You can't say that the teachers are substandard because they're not getting paid as much because it's a socialized system. The teachers are still wonderful. They do their job, and they go into it because they love it. Doctors can handle that.
So here's the thing. Socialized medicine, I'm not going to debate whether it's a good or bad thing. I think that there's a lot of good things that go with it. I think there are some negative things. It's not going to happen here in the United States. It's not, and if it does, it won't happen for a gazillion years because, we've talked before about those men and women of Congress should have to wear, jackets with all their sponsors on them. They're so far up the asses of, insurance and pharmaceutical companies, you can forget it. But the real thing is there are a lot of people's pensions that are tied up in the healthcare industry. So a lot of people's pensions, a lot of other people's retirement tied up in it. So if we went to single payer, that would poof. And it would cause all of that to become devalued, I imagine. And
I don't know.
because what are those companies going to do? They're not going to be performing at the profits that they are for their investors and stuff too. So they're going to lose money. I mean, I'm just looking at it from a financial standpoint. While I think it's great, in the times that Canada and, the UK did this, it was 70 years ago now, that we didn't have medicine set up as a business. back then you went to your doctor, you paid him your $3 or your chicken or whatever you had to give him that week, and, it wasn't the level of commerce that it is now. And so dismantling that is going to be...
I think there's
But it's
a
one
way
of the-
to dismantle it just as...
There's that whole liberal fundamental belief that which is more important, money or people?
I said this to somebody yesterday. That's what that is the fundamental belief I believe, between liberals and conservatives, that liberals do look at the larger picture first. They look at the larger picture and how it affects people as a whole first, whereas I find most conservatives think, how does this impact me first, rather than the greater good. And we're great. We love everybody. We want everybody to be happy and healthy and everything else, and I do. I think that it's a wonderful thing to aspire to and for us to work towards. That's not going to happen in the next 4 years. So what we have to worry about is the AHCA getting pushed through without a single damn meeting, and...
Didn't I read I think I read something that McConnell might be starting to soften on that.
So...
Let me see if I can find that.
I believe that he put out that he was going to release some version of it on Thursday.
Yes, I think that's what I read
And
too.
that
Let me look
it's
for
going
it,
to be
though.
released. But it still won't get the adequate time to be discussed, and it won't be able to be have any changes made to it.
Didn't I read somewhere that, they met over Obamacare like 100 different times, and Republicans were allowed to have special meetings about it? And
There was 100 and some odd meetings, and then there was 100 and some odd, I want to say 61 amendments that the Republicans insisted on in order to get ACA through.
passed, yeah.
And they're not allowing any hearing time. They're not allowing any debate time. They're not allowing any amendments. And somebody jokingly on Twitter said that the Democrats should just assume in their mind what Trump Care is, or AHCA, and they should just write up like 3,000 and some odd amendments and just start submitting it to the Republicans just to piss them off.
Well,
It's not a bad idea.
when you shovel shit that fast, you're going to get shit back, in your face. And so, you can't expect this to be, I don't know how anybody can expect this to be any better.
See, I keep
Oh,
wondering.
it's not. If it were better, they would be touting it.
Oh,
they would
be screaming.
They
but
would have a
think
little
this is better.
trumpet out
they do
and
think
everything.
it's better. However, if you remember what President Obama said when he left office, and he was like, "Hey, if you come up with something better, I'll support it." But then he also said that let the Republicans put this out here. Let them put their idea on it, but they're going to have to own it. So if it is bad, if it is a big bag of bullshit and a bag of
It is.
horrible. It's
a
something that the Republicans are going
flaming
to
bag
have
of
to
dog
own.
shit.
Well, and the thing is, though, they're going to push it through, and things are going to change. Usually they give it a few months before things get implemented, right? They'll pass it, and
Usually they'll do it. Start a new year.
yeah, January 1st next year maybe is when all the changes
So
come through.
if it does pass, and it is as horrible as they say it is,
Can they repeal it? I guess they could repeal it.
They could repeal it, or they can make changes to it. However, they're going to have to own this. So when it is bad, and 2018 comes around, they're going to be. They're going to shove it right in their face and say, "Look, you guys put this through. We couldn't do anything."
Well, Trump has even come out and said it was mean.
It's mean.
This is something you were yelling and screaming and going, look what we can do. And, it was the first big, loss of his presidency, that when they couldn't repeal Obamacare, when they couldn't immediately take it off the table and make it go away. And that was the first thing he had to kind of swallow. And so the fact that he's coming out and saying this is mean, maybe I'd like to say he's seeing some light, but I'm going to go with probably
No,
not.
like you said, he lives for today.
Yeah.
He only sees what's happening today, and he sees that this has come really unpopular.
Yeah.
And so now he's kind of trying to backtrack a little bit. because it's all
If
about
it's
the
put-
ratings for him.
exactly. I think if it's put in terms of ratings to him, like, your ratings will plummet if this happens. He's like, oh, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But if it's put, your ratings will jump, then he wants them to do it. And as of right now, somebody, probably Bannon, is whispering in his ear that, this might not be such a good plan. You might want to reconsider letting him do it.
Yeah, so
Just a
I mean,
thought.
the AHCA, we should start seeing something in the next few days, and so we'll get an idea of what it is. So we're going to take a break, and the best thing we're going to talk about is Blue Apron. Blue Apron is a fresh ingredient, pre-measured delivery service that brings you food, brings you all the ingredients that you need to make a great meal for a very little amount of money. If you're serving 2 people, if you're serving 4, if you're serving 6, they can provide all the things you need to make a great meal with little fuss. They have such food as chicken salad sandwiches with Parmesan garlic, summer squash. I mean, it's sounds amazing just reading about it. They also have really good vegetable meals. If you're not that much of a meat eater, if you're not that paleo kind of person, they have spring vegetables and with toasted pearl couscous with a Hamuni style chicken. Cheese. I'm sorry. I'm kind of going off. And they have great food, and it is really delicious, and it doesn't cost that much. If you'd like to give it a try, all you have to do is go to podblesskentucky.com and click on the link for blueapron.com, and you will start off with a $30 off your first trial. So, alrighty. And we're back, and we're talking a little bit. So what else has happened other than the AHCA and the special election?
All right, so we've reason to believe Seth Abramson, and we're going just, it's rumor, but Seth Abramson, he has quite the resume. Follow him on Twitter. He does have extraordinarily long threads, but follow him on Twitter. He has reason to believe, he, along with Senator Whitehouse out of Rhode Island, the two of them have reason to believe that Flynn has flipped, and that would actually be quite disastrous.
Oh, yeah. If you're not familiar with Seth Abramson, he is a political analyst. At one time, he was with NBC. He was now with CNN and BuzzFeed and numerous media outlets doing what he does.
More importantly, he's a former
prosecuting attorney.
Former prosecuting attorney. So, one of the things that he's saying, and also this Charles Pierce of Esquire magazine or Esquire paper, I'm not sure if it's a magazine or paper.
Esquire Media. Yeah,
Media.
They do all that.
They are also reporting that Flynn probably has indeed flipped. So why would he flip? What does it mean? According to Seth, it just means that the end of Trump is coming much sooner than what we thought. His prediction is actually about 18 months.
Wow. I mean, we can only hope. We really could. I mean, this is a big news. This is something that if he is flipping and he is turning over evidence of collusion with the Russians over the election of the presidency, this could be something really big.
Well, and Dana was just reading also Seth Abramson. He has out a newer thread, and he was talking about that it's the collusion. So one little tidbit I caught when I was looking for this other part was the actual collusion was simply like a quid pro quo, is that the word I'm looking for, where if Putin influences the elections, if he uses, not that he's changing the votes, please do not misunderstand that we're saying he's changing the votes, but if he used his propaganda machine that they're fine-tuning to get people to vote for Trump, that as soon as Trump was in, Trump would
release the
sanctions on Russia, which gives them a multi-billion-dollar shot at oil. I mean, like, they have the largest oil fields in the world.
Now, one of the critiques a lot of conservatives use on this is that even if he did say he was going to remove the sanctions against Russia, they claim that, Obama did the same thing when he met with Russian nationals and said, and even Vladimir Putin when he said, give me a few more months until after the election and then we can make things happen. So I know a lot of conservatives use that.
But did he?
He did. He actually said that. I was on a hot mic that people didn't realize that was actually being recorded. And he did say that. Now...
Okay, but, all right, fine. Use that and use it against Democrats or whatever and say that, but Obama was going to... Okay, but maybe... In that sense, Obama wasn't using the getting yourself elected, or
I think a lot of people
hurting the American people.
I think a lot of people don't understand what was meant by the involvement of the Russians. They didn't go into the actual voting booth and change your vote, but however, they did influence you through different types of media, different types of websites, to kind of get you to see a view a little differently.
Right.
Well, they influenced the stories that were proposed. They also had millions, and they do know that it's millions of bots. Bots are fake people online and pretending to be real people that would tweet and would follow and would influence
leave comments.
Facebook.
And the more stuff that comes up like that on different social media, it skews what you see. Mm-hmm. And so you'll see much more favorable, you would have seen much more favorable Trump. You'd seen much more, negative towards Hillary Clinton in that instance.
Most definitely.
And they do say that there were at least 39 states that did have their voting
machines, or at
but
least
not
the system,
machines,
the system that was in charge of the voting machines.
They did see that those were hacked. Now, how they were hacked, as far as what information was gleaned from them, if information was gleaned from them, I'm not sure that that's known yet. And it very well could have just been who to target. We
don't know what they did or what they could have gotten out of it. And, and we've talked about it before, about the fact that there were several states that Trump won by the same exact margin, by 1.5%.
Right. And
the fact that it was the same margin in several states that he was not expected to win, or were going to be too close to call, basically,
is very questionable.
Is questionable.
Yeah, but as far as that goes, that is not the proof. That is not what.
That's
it's not the smoking gun.
To our knowledge, that is not what Flynn would be flipping and taking Trump down on. To our proven knowledge, what he would be flipping on are specifically the sanctions.
Right. Now, this is definitely something that's not going to be going away in the near future, as we'll learn more, and we'll definitely be talking about this again.
All the time, probably. I would guess that, every week. So Mueller brought in a special prosecutor,
really,
whose sole job, or not sole job, but what he's famous for is getting the witnesses to turn on their friends, on their family, on their colleagues. I kind of think of him as the vice grip, This is what I picture. I picture this whole thing very mob mentality-like, because that's exactly what it feels like.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
And, Flynn asked for immunity back in...
I can't even keep up anymore.
March?
I believe that it was in March, and he's still being turned down for immunity.
He's still being turned down for immunity. So my guess is whatever he's got on Trump and whatever he's, why he is spilling the beans like he is, they must be offering him something, like maybe not be in the prison cell with Bubba. Maybe they'll put you in a nice, cushy jail cell.
Right.
Somewhere in a, whatever. But he's flipping.
Not the fuck me in the ass kind of.
Soap on a rope
is it-
only, darling.
Is it a fuck me in the ass prison or is it a white collar prison?
I think they're probably that way at the white collar prisons too.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
It's just a question on whether or not you get to watch Mark.
You know what we should do? You know what we should do?
What should we do?
Oh my gosh. We should get everybody to donate a shit ton of soap on a rope and just start sending it to the different members of Congress and
To the members of his cabinet.
and the different members of the cabinet. And
First of all, I hadn't seen soap in a rope, not even in a men's gift set for Christmas, in a very long time.
we can make it.
We
can
can. I Girl Scout camping.
Start
Yeah,
sending
I
them
know how to do
to
that.
Jeff Sessions.
You know, I'm sure we're already on lists.
Jeff
I'm not
Se-
sure
the
how
Jeff
much we need
Sessions
to
gift
draw
set.
more attention to ourselves.
So if you'd
But
like
wouldn't
to,
it be funny?
if you'd like to help
Send
in
him a
making
prison.
the Jeff Sessions gift set,
We could make
should make sure that you show up at Monday Nights for Rights. And
we could
we'll be
make
making
prison care kits for the Jeff Sessions and Michael Flynn and
Well, you know, certain things are at a premium
throw
there.
a couple cigarettes in there.
yeah.
Ooh, currency.
Currency. You know this.
So, so what else?
I'm a jack
what
of all
else
trades.
do we have to talk about today?
So moving on to local issues. Today's tweet from Allison London Grimes just did my heart good. I don't have it right up right now, but she tweeted that Kentucky is actually falling behind. We need to catch up with the rest of the states and fucking legalize marijuana.
Now, when she says marijuana, is that medical marijuana or is that recreational marijuana?
She didn't, I don't think it really said. It said that, like our neighbors, Ohio, Indiana, and
I mean, it has been
Somebody
said
else.
many times, and I mean, it's kind of thing. We're one of the
gonna
best
look right now.
areas to grow it, but we'll be one of the last to legalize it.
well,
She said, she's got several actually tweets on it. She said 29 states and D.C. have now legalized medical marijuana. Kentucky falling behind, including neighbors West Virginia, Ohio, and Illinois legalize. Recent polls show 8 in 10 Kentuckians support medical marijuana. Let's legalize and help thousands of Kentucky patients. If a person only has months to live and medical marijuana makes them more comfortable, why shouldn't we allow it? Time to legalize in Kentucky.
That's very true. I mean, it has become a economic value in those states. It has generously helped the people who are dealing with great amounts of pain.
not just pain, kids with epilepsy, aging adults with Parkinson's.
Yes.
I have a friend who is she's like, there's just not enough medical tests out yet to say that medical marijuana is better than, pharmaceuticals.
You know what?
But at this point in time,
But you know
You
what?
know.
My father has Parkinson's. He can't drive. There's a lot of things he can't do from, himself anymore. If marijuana would help that, I'd get it for myself and hand it to him.
Right.
I mean, I'd even like to take it one step further and say, let's just legalize it, period. I mean, ask Colorado how that's going, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
It's
Legalize it, tax it,
regulate it.
regulate.
I mean, it should be treated just like any other thing that you ingest or take in. If you are under the influence, then you get cited for it. Don't go to work high. Don't get in your car and drive high. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure those things out. You can't get in your car and drive drunk. You can't go to work drunk either. So,
However, we do have, we were just talking about Jeff Sessions. We have an attorney general who wants to go back on that and at the federal level and make it illegal even for medical purposes.
that's just
he
insane.
wants to, he announced this last week that he wants to roll back those regulations that even allow the states to make that choice.
We already, heaven forbid, states' rights. Aren't Republicans about states' rights? What the hell, man? No, we already have an overcrowding issue here in jails. I mean, in prisons,
Yeah, and our
huge.
correctional
exactly what
facilities
I was gonna
are
say.
way overcrowded.
And if they pulled, now if I remember correctly, and I'm probably wrong, and I'll have to look the article up, and hopefully we'll post something on our Facebook site. About half the people who are in jail are due to
minor drug
offenses.
minor drug offenses.
And a lot of that is marijuana. And we would immediately lessen the amount
But
if all those
we're not going to do that.
No, we're going to make it worse.
Because we are privatized prisons.
Yeah, those are run really horribly and with
don't
not a lot of
disagree.
regulation.
I don't disagree.
However, these large corporations actually use those prisons as workforce.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They actually, Victoria's Secret at one time.
The catalog processing.
The catalog processing and sewing of bras. They were actually, these convicts would be sewing these bras that would be later sold.
Oh my God! Please tell me it was the men's prisons that were.
Oh yeah, it
sewing
was.
Bras.
It was. And
Hey, dude, if you got to sneak one back
now,
to your
however, Victoria's
significant
Secret
other.
received all kinds of bad press about this, and they have reversed. So they're no longer doing that. But there are numbers of companies that actually, like many baseball hats, that they are made within the prison system.
Well, I know that a lot of them have call centers there too, where they process orders and customer service within the prison system, and they make, like you said, and they also do a lot of manual labor too. They do a lot of manual labor, and we can probably debate whether those are good things or bad things. I don't think that companies should be getting a break,
getting a tax write-off, and having prison workers.
Yeah,
which is free
having
labor.
But see, the government still pays these privatized prisons, correct?
Yes. They do.
So the privatized prison is making money at least two different ways.
Yep. And probably feeding them,
Gruel.
Texturized vegetable protein. The loaf. What's that loaf called?
Oh yeah,
Spam?
No. He knows what I'm talking about. It's a loaf that they make out of TVP, texturized vegetable protein, and it's gross.
Yeah,
Never been to
Nutritionally, it meets standards.
now in most of these prisons, they do have. No one regulates what these people eat. There's no standard of saying, okay, this is what you have to feed prisoners.
Right.
And big companies that are in the cafeterias, Aramark has a large amount of placement in the prison system. If you ever get to check out on Netflix, the 13th, it goes over the 13th Amendment and how minorities, which are overwhelmingly part of the prison system, and disproportionately, and how things are done in the prison systems. So if you get a chance, check that out. It is really riveting, and it's something that everyone should see.
And that's exactly why we shouldn't have privatized prisons, and that's exactly why Mr. Sessions should not be pushing to go for maximum sentences for these minor drug offenses.
Well,
It's
and
wrong.
not just minor drug offenses, but for minorities. He is known to be a racist.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, he has made racist comments in the past.
I didn't know the Keebler elf was racist.
And the thing is
No,
these
actually,
prison systems, they make large contributions to these politicians. So there's a reason. Jan Brewer, the former governor of Arizona, they gave huge amounts of money in return. She actually put, I think, 3 correctional facilities within Arizona.
3.
Wow.
And I'm assuming they're big correctional facilities.
Oh yeah,
Not like-
definitely. They are. You have to think the reason why I brought up the 13th, because it's built off the 13th Amendment, which is against slavery, and so the whole idea of these inmates having to make these goods for free is another way of slavery.
Do they not get even like,
Oh, no.
62 cents
They
a
don't
day
get
or something like
They
that?
don't get that money. The correctional facility gets it.
I know some of them, for some of the manual labor things, now this might be at state facilities, I'm not sure, make, like you said, it's pennies or something an hour that they get to put in their commissary account or, but it's pennies. I mean, it's
basically
It's
what do
still
you call it?
slavery.
It's still slavery, yeah.
Sweatshop wages.
Right.
they might probably get paid better in a sweatshop, honestly, because, I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of money that they actually get for it.
Ivanka Trump's sweatshops over in China are like $62 a week for a 70-hour week or something.
So, I mean, how many days are we into the Trump presidency?
Good question.
So, because
Discuss while
the reason
I
I
find
ask
that.
this is because, I mean, President Trump has been saying that he is going to bring back companies to, and he's encouraged other companies, but we still have not seen any of Ivanka's companies come back. We haven't seen the Trump steaks or any of those. All those Trump companies have not returned to the United States.
No, they have not.
So, I mean, that's something that we really, I mean, as we get closer to the election, we need to look at what President Trump has done
There is actually
for himself compared to what he has done for the people.
There's actually a countdown, or not a countdown, but a clock. He's been in office 152 days, 2 hours, 49 minutes, and 32 seconds.
Wow.
There you go.
So, I mean, not that we're counting or anything,
No.
but, I mean, so we are going to have to learn to keep him accountable.
Well, I will tell you, he hasn't mentioned it yet because, or at least to my knowledge, since we started recording, Ford, they made a big deal about Ford staying in the U.S., blah, blah, blah. Ford is moving its Focus production from Michigan to China.
Wow.
I did see
And-
that, but he's not going to say a word about that.
And
It
then Carrier, they actually did lose those positions that he negotiated.
Right.
So, I mean, for all the things that he has done in these 152 days saying, look, I'm making America great again, it hasn't held up.
But if you look, I mean, like, I swear to God, you look through the comments of the Trumpanzees, and all they can fucking say is, well, that's not true. He's brought jobs, and they put out this giant checklist of everything he's accomplished, and I can't figure out what the hell he's actually accomplished. I don't
Well, a
even
lot
see
of those
it.
were jobs that were already going to be
Set
in
in
place.
place.
Yeah. Now, this says Ford is stressing, by the way, that no American jobs are going to be lost in this move to China. They're saying that in late 2018, the Michigan plant will begin focusing on bigger, more profitable vehicles like the Ranger pickup. And they also just announced yesterday that it's investing $900 million here in Kentucky to build big SUVs like the Lincoln Navigator, which would secure 1,000 jobs at the plant here in Kentucky.
To secure, not increase.
But the thing is that Trump keeps trying to take credit for all this, and I don't know giant, enormous, big-ass businesses that well. I know what it's like running a very small farm, and I don't plan out 3 months in advance for anything. Everything we plan out is, okay, next year by this time, this is something we want to have. Or in 6, I don't even think in a normal.
This has to be
normal would
planned out
6
years
months.
in advance.
Well,
So for Trump to even take credit, if those things happened,
Well, I will say that Spicy deflected a question yesterday about Ford's China decision, saying that tax reform would boost American-based manufacturing. He said that the general consensus is that the president wants to create a tax system that encourages companies to bring jobs and factories back here.
fucking trickle down economics.
Well, it's not that. Is that if that's really what you believe, if that's really what you're toting, put your money where your mouth is and bring your
own
businesses back
businesses
here.
Right.
You can't tell other people to do that if you're not willing to do it yourself. And I don't think he ever will, because bottom line is he makes more money.
right, his kids aren't going to bring back any of those. They just got another 10 trademarks out of China, too.
Well,
Like, just this week.
well, and what we just found out this week too, that Russia re-trademarked some Trump trademarks the day of the election or the day after
Very
the
true.
election. Yeah,
It was like the day after, because Tom had asked me a couple of days ago. He was like, when did we really start to learn that there was connections between Trump and Russia? When was that actually first reported?
That's a good question.
I looked it up. November 10th.
Jesus, 2 days after the election.
2 days after the election, somebody said, I think it was a Washington Post article. They said there are connections between Trump and Russia. And it had to do with the sanctions right from the get-go. So,
Boy.
So,
stop dragging your damn feet, Mueller. Come on.
yeah.
Hurry the
So,
fuck up.
what else has happened in our little world?
Bevan.
Governor Matt Bevin.
Fuck Bevan.
Sonny's favoriteest person.
So,
I don't know who's
but the good
worse.
thing is, the Supreme Court has said that he can no longer block.
People cannot be blocked if you are
Through
a
the
government
governmental-
official, and it did not delineate between personal accounts and government accounts.
Well, you're not a private citizen. If you are a public official, you're not a private. I mean,
There is no private.
there's no
citizen.
private citizen. You're not
Well,
a
like-
private citizen until you step back from public life.
Right,
true.
but what they're saying, what I'm trying to say is that there wasn't any, like, Matt Bevin has both.
Right.
Right,
That's
but
what I
still,
mean. They're both. It still
both of them
represents him.
Represents him.
So
He could argue different, but that's not true. He's not a private citizen.
So according to, I'll find it and put it up. One article I was reading, the Supreme Court has said that if it is an official statement from you, so like, you know how Bevin wants to use Facebook Live and he only wants to use Twitter.
He does a lot of Facebook Live, yeah.
Well, and Trump is the same way. They
Right.
use Twitter as their official mouthpiece.
Right.
You cannot block a citizen of the United States
Especially
from that.
Especially if you say it's official, which they have done.
They both have.
This is my official means of communication. Therefore, you can't block someone who might or might not vote for you. And I'd like to, and by the way, if anybody's been blocked by Matt Bevin or by Trump, and
Well,
you're
it's by any elected official.
right, but if you've been elected by, so Nima, not Nima, I know you've been blocked by a couple of here. I'd like to find out if they've actually unblocked you or not.
Yeah, that's very true. We'll
yeah.
have to put something out, see if somebody's been
Yeah.
unblocked from it. But Bevin,
How do you enforce that too?
so ACLU had a lawsuit, and I would assume that if you are still blocked,
You
you
could
would contact them and say, listen, Buttface Bevin still is doing the same damn thing, and he won't quit.
Right.
I really don't like him.
I can tell.
And
So,
further on what I don't like about him is last week we complained that he was saying that people who were disagreed with his roving prayer groups were ungodly, right?
Right.
And then he went on to say that everybody misinterpreted him because when
and
he gathered all of those
verbally
people,
attacked
he verbally attacked.
WDRB out of.
Well, but he was saying that nobody, they assumed that he was saying that the only thing that was going to happen were these roving prayer groups to end the violence over in west end of Louisville. But what, and a lot of people, Attica Scott and a few others were like, listen, there's systemic violence, you're right, but there's multi-generational poverty and there's multi-generational issues with education, and you can't solve violence without the resources behind these other
problems
things.
because they are connected.
They are
Right.
very connected. So then Bevin goes on a new rant and says that the media and the pastors who are disagreeing with these roving prayer groups are goats. That there are goats and there are sheep.
Do you have that
I
opinion
have
article?
that article.
There's another pastor, actually.
It's actually from the Southern Baptist. No, not Southern Baptist. Shit. It was from Baptist something or another.
But a pastor wrote a very, very good op-ed piece about, first of all, there's a lot of assumptions that Bevin was making in everything that he said in general, that these neighborhoods haven't been getting out there and doing exactly what it's saying. If anything, these neighborhoods have been praying far more than Bevin has thought about them at all. And they have been active within their communities trying to fix some of these problems. They need exterior resources to help come in, but not the way Bevan is saying for it to do. And, the pastors in these communities are incredibly involved in their communities.
One of the articles is by Forward Kentucky, and it talks more about the big named media people that he went after.
Yeah, WDRB and the Courier Journal. WDRB, their general manager actually did an opinion piece on air, and Bevan felt that he was taken out of context, but
right, which is what I'm saying is when he says he was taken out of context, he didn't offer any other solutions. He never once freaking said, we're going to work on other solutions, and it's all recorded because this comes from him, and he can't deny, like when you record it on Facebook Live, it is what it is.
It's still a public record.
So this other particular article I'm talking about, and I will make sure it gets posted up there, it's from Baptist News, okay? And it's titled Sheep, Goats, and State Governors. And it talks about how, the systemic issues behind the violence in the West End of Louisville is not, it transcends
generational.
It's generational. It is not something that you can just walk in and say, here's a prayer. We're going to pray once a week, and all this is going to go away.
And everything's going to go away. It just doesn't work that way.
It's not going to work that way. So the problem that this particular pastor has, you all know I don't go to church, right? So I had to look things up, and this pastor actually explained things beautifully. He uses this sheep and goat analogy. There's this book at the end of the Bible, and it talks about the end of time, right? And at least I think it's in the end.
I don't know if it's in Revelations or not.
But he talks about how Jesus is going to be sitting on some big chair, and he's going to send the goats, the people who are not believers, to his whatever side, and they're going to go to hell.
Now, it's in the Gospel of Matthew, actually.
Is it in Matthew?
Yes. In the story, and I'm actually quoting directly from the article right now. It says, Jesus depicts himself sitting on the great judgment seat at the end of time, judging the actions of all the nations. The sheep he sends to the right, to eternal life. The goats he sends to the left, to eternal punishment. So it seems Matt Bevan is putting himself and not Jesus on the judgment seat.
Right.
So,
and he's putting the journalists and the clergy that disagree with him as goats and condemning them to hell, and putting those that do agree with him, both clergy and other politicians, on the path to heaven.
But what he's leaving out there is that in this parable about the sheep and the goats, Jesus specifically says that the way to separate those from who deserve punishment or reward is not how much they prayed for the people in need, which is exactly what Bevan is suggesting, but whether or not someone actually feeds the hungry, gives the thirsty something to drink, welcomed the stranger, clothed the naked, cared for those who are sick and in prison. In fact, Jesus cares so much, he asserts those people needing help were truly Jesus himself. And he basically says, if Governor Bevan wants to talk about sheep and goats, he'd do well first to consider which side he finds himself on, given the criteria laid out by Jesus.
I was just going to say, no way. Our governor is cherry-picking the Bible?
Well, the irony is that it's the verse right after the one he's quoting,
right.
And it's first of all, Bevan likes to throw it out there, because they've opened their home
and hypocrisy is cracking me up.
Yeah, I mean, it really, really is. But it's also, it's so, not just hypocrisy, but it's so arrogant. It's so arrogant to think like you know better than these people who have lived in these areas their whole life.
To me, it was arrogant in that he's putting himself in the shoes of Jesus, who they hold to a godlike standard, right? And he's putting himself into these shoes, and
he doesn't see it
that way.
To me,
that is very arrogant.
I tell you what it comes off as arrogant to me is these are largely areas of, of color. Mm-hmm. And he, the all-knowing white man, is going to go in there and tell them what they need to be doing on how to make their area better. It's like, it's so...
So this Baptist minister that does this article, he was also talking about how there is a very large church, maybe not like Six Flags Over Jesus large church, but a large church that works with the community.
Right.
Empower, West Empower, something like that. It's called Empower something. And they work with the community, and they are trying their damnedest with the resources. Empower West. With the resources they have, with the resources that people donate to them, to make these people's lives better, to help them pull that out of there. And instead of Bevan saying, listen, we're going to help you with these resources, he said, you need to work harder at praying.
Well, Empower West believes the people of the West End have the solutions to change their neighborhoods. What they lack are the resources. And in those areas, white clergy take a second chair to black clergy who live in the community.
As it should.
Bevan, on the other hand, didn't inquire from those ministers what was already happening. I didn't ask. He didn't even ask.
Right.
He simply came and said, this is what you need to do. And it's it
should be amplified.
It's
should
derogatory.
not. It is derogatory.
Well, and
it's rotten.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also an assumption that those people, through their systemic poverty and their multi-generational violence and all of the other shit that these people are having to deal with, they are assuming that they're still not really good Christians down in heart.
I don't even know if it's that. I just think that he is thinking that prayer is the answer. I think he's thinking it's a large that if it's not the only. Well, I mean,
it's not the only answer.
It's not the only answer. And if they feel like prayer is helping, then go for it. I mean, but it's not the only answer.
No,
I
like
mean,
that pastor said.
I mean, we're not here to say prayer is a bad thing.
No, not at all. Not at
Prayer is
all.
a good thing.
No.
And it does take its place, but it cannot be rested on alone.
It's not going to solve your poverty. No. It's not going to solve the education issue. It's not going to solve the violence. It just isn't going to do it.
And you can't rely on spirituality or God alone to do those things. Even my mom would always say, God gave you 2 hands, 2 feet, and a brain. Use them. And that's what it is. You were given gifts, however you believe you were given them, to go out and do. And whether you're Republican or conservative or whatever, in a bad area, in a good area, we were put here on this planet to be good people and to do good things. And he took a large amount of assumption, which what happens when you assume. And he did. He made an ass out of himself.
It was so much white privilege. I mean,
yes.
an unbelievable amount of white privilege to me.
The great thing about all of this is that you have the news media and these pastors who have actually called this out.
Right.
And
Which
have not been
pissed him
silent.
off.
I mean, a lot of people said, well, it would be a lot easier to be silent and not speak out about these things, even though they are wrong, and that's what he wants. He wants people to be quiet, and that's why he's not working with the news media, and that's not
because he just wants to do it his way, and he thinks that his way is the right way and the only way.
And that's the great thing about the resistance right now is that we're able to speak out, and it's important to make your voice heard.
Well, I know a lot of people right now are just in general, because of what happened in Georgia and everything else, are a little bit down. They feel like their voices aren't being heard, that why are they doing all this? Folks, this isn't an easy road to hoe. Nobody said that it was going to be. But you have to keep resisting. On my way here to Studio 1A in Snowflake Village, I was on the one main road that we have here in central Kentucky, and I was between exit 5 and 6. And it's a 3-lane highway at that point. It's all concrete. And there's a cement median that goes down the middle. And out of that cement median, not tiny little weeds, but giant sunflowers were coming out at a small point. Aww. And all I could think of, I've been in a crap-ass mood all day. And all I could think of is somehow those sunflowers made it up, got some light, and grew. And I thought they persisted. They kept going. They found a way. And that's our job. We have to keep persisting. We have to keep resisting. And we have to keep doing it together. And we can choose to do it, we can choose to keep dividing ourselves, or we can choose to keep finding common ground and move forward. And I think that's what we have to do. It's hard. It's time consuming, it's exhausting. But you got to keep showing up, because someone earlier this week actually said, it's not making a difference. What does it matter? And my response to that was, I have to answer for what I do, but if you stop calling, if you stop writing, if you stop voicing your opinion, they think you've gone away, no matter what you believe, and they think they've won. So I don't care how tired I get. I'm going to keep screaming. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep calling, so they know I'm here, and they have to acknowledge that in some way.
And
I agree.
And to give you a chance to do that, there are some events that are going to be coming up in the next week, and we just want to make sure we haven't gone over the calendar in the last couple of weeks.
It is woefully unupdated.
Yeah,
Says the person in charge of it.
But our calendar for this week, there's plenty of things going on Sunday here in Lexington.
Right.
On Sunday, we have the Indivisible meeting at 4:30. It's their monthly meeting.
It's at the UU, right?
At the Unitarian Universalist Church on Clays Mill Road. Before that, though, MoveOn.org is actually having their Summer of Resistance meeting. It is at Shiloh Park at 3 o'clock at shelter number 4, I believe. And they would like to, anybody who would like to come out and be part of this resistance. I mean, they are, and this is a big organization. This is MoveOn.org, you know, the folks that are constantly emailing you.
Oh my God.
So
many emails.
they're starting a movement, and this is a movement for the summer. So if you get a chance to go on out there, once again, that's at 3 o'clock at Shiloh Park.
And Shiloh and the UU are pretty close together, so you could make both of those if you'd really like to.
Tom
definitely.
plans on it. And then on Monday night, we've actually had a change of venue.
For Monday Nights of Rights.
For Monday Nights for Rights, we were going to have it at Ethereal, and I want it known very clearly that it is being changed to West 6th. And we are changing it because our own Trent Garrison is going to be giving a speech about science and climate change and all that other good
So
stuff.
Suds for Science at West 6th Brewery.
So Suds for Science, Monday Nights for Rights will be Suds for Science at West 6th.
And that's at 6 o'clock until 9?
6 till 9. I believe his speech starts at 6:30. I didn't pay that much attention.
Gives you a little bit of time to write a few postcards about science.
Get yourself.
beer.
Never mind.
Maybe fish.
Shit-faced.
And there will be plenty of other things going on through the summer, so make sure you listen in, and we'll try and keep you updated on that. Well, any final thoughts before we end the show today?
Nope, I got
All
beer
right.
brain.
Well, as we say, good beer, good friends, good conversation, and as we say every week,
The
the resistance is real, the resistance is working, and the resistance needs you. So we'll see you next week.
Amen, baby.
And we'll end the show off with a little Carla Gover. And we'll see you guys next week.
We work hard for what we've got. Seems like we just need a lot. The debts keep rising above our heads. I wish that we could save instead. Say money's our God, it makes our decisions. But if money's our God, I want a new religion. Daycare, carpool, traffic jam. Daddy's working late again. Our kids are raised by someone else. I'd rather be with them myself. Say money's our God, it makes our decisions. But if money's our God, I want a new religion. I fall down on my bills and pray we'll get out of this debt someday. How much stuff do we think we need? Grandma would have called it green. money's our God, it makes our decisions. But if money's our God, I want a new religion. Yeah, money's our God, it makes our decisions. But if money's our God, I want a new religion.